Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. My name is Brianna Stokes. I'm one of the international student advisors here at Penn, and I'm presenting with Jeremy.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeremy Spohr. I'm the Associate Director of ISSS, and Brianna and I are going to take you through the first OPT webinar of the spring 2026 OPT season. So we've got about, I think, 25 or 30 slides for you. You can put questions in the Q&A, but I would encourage everybody to really listen to the webinar because we will answer the vast majority of the frequently asked questions. And then if you have, of course, if you have additional questions, feel free to ask. And we will hopefully have time for some Q&A at the end, and we'll answer the questions out of the Q&A that you put in there. So Brianna's going to take us through the first half. So go ahead and take it away, Brianna.
Oh, okay. So now we're going to go over OPT since everybody is, it's around that time for you to start applying. So basically, the purpose of OPT is for you to apply like what you learned in your degree into real world experience, so work experience. And you get regular OPT, you get 12 months of that per degree level. So if you do a bachelor's and you finish, you get OPT, and then you go do a master's, you can also do OPT again, and then so on at the PhD level. There are different kinds of OPT. So there's pre-completion OPT, which is work experience, like you can request for a certain amount of time while you're still in school before you graduate. However, at this time, it's not really recommended because USCIS is currently paused processing. So those are not being processed right now. Um, and so again, just not recommended. But then post completion, which is the one that at this time most people are going to be applying for, is for once you graduate, and for you to be able to work after finishing. And also to add another note is that USCIS has currently paused processing for in basically immigration benefits from students on the travel ban list. So if you are from that country, or if you're not sure, just make sure to we have we have our page that has all of the countries affected. So just make sure to check that to see, and just know that right now they're not processing any immigration benefits at this time for students from affected countries. Um, and it's authorized. OPT is authorized by USCIS, not ISSS. So they're the ones that'll be processing your overall OPT application. Um, and so to be eligible, of course, you have to be in F1 status because it's a benefit of your F1 status. You'll have to complete at least one academic year in lawful status. So, that means being enrolled full time and just meeting the requirements of that. And then also, you can't have already had OPT at your level. So, say this is your second bachelor's degree, but you already had OPT at the bachelor's degree before. You can't do OPT again because you've already had it at that degree level. You can't have been authorized for 12 months of full-time CPT at the current degree level as well. So basically, if you do that, then they'll be like, well, you've already, done your work for the year, so there's no OPT for you. If you do that, and then you don't have to have a job to apply for OPT, you can just apply and look for jobs now before whenever you decide while you're applying. And then the types of employment for OPT, so you can do paid and unpaid jobs on OPT, that's perfectly fine. This volunteering or legitimate unpaid work is permitted. So as long as it's like something that's not always been paid, that kind of thing. Um, and you can hold as many positions as you want. There's no maximum. There is a minimum, and that is the 20 hours a week uh, for post completion OPT. So if you're going to do it, make sure that you're working at least a minimum of 20 hours a week, because that's considered full time. And also, you're also allowed to change employers as you see fit, as long as they meet the OPT requirements. Um, I don't know if we go over that. Yeah. So one of those is to work in your field of study. It has to be related to your major field of study. And is a common question is, how do I know if it's related to my field of study? You see, look at the duties, like your responsibilities and such, like what kind of, and versus the company that you're working for. You can compare it to your academic curriculum. And can you, like, if somebody were to ask you, because you do have to explain how it's related to your major, just like, can you explain that? And you can also just check with your academic department or alumni. You can go to career services and they have, pages that show like what can you do with what kind of jobs you could do with the major, and just different resources for that. So that's one of the requirements. So please make sure that you're working in a job that is related to your major. And then, so for the OPT application process, first, of course, you're going to request to the ISSS portal. We'll recommend you OPT. Then you'll file on, like, once you get the I-20 from us, you'll file on USCIS's website. And then once USCIS approves it, you'll get your EAD card. You'll report that to us, whether that's you have your EAD card and if you have a job, or just if you just have your EAD card, you'll report it to us. And then basically you'll also report any changes in address or like phone number, email address, any of that. You'll also report that to us through your IPEN portal. Uh, so the filing timeline is the earliest you can apply is February 17th, through the IPEN portal. Of course, again, just make sure you apply through us first. Do not apply on the USCIS website first. Um, so February 17th is the earliest. And then your program end date is, if your program end date is May 18th. And then the latest OPT application date you can do is July 17th, which is going to be like the end of your 60-day grace period. That's not recommended. You should, if you can, recommended to apply a little bit earlier, just in case, And so just keep that in mind. And then we're going to go over the OPT application process. So the first step, of course, is to request OPT through ISSS. So read the OPT section of our website, and it has like the steps and everything on how to apply. So you'll complete the request in your IPEN portal. Your second approver has to be your academic advisor, and so they can attest that you'll be finishing your program. And then for post-completion OPT requests only, there is a fee that you'll pay once you submit the form. And then there's also an OPT tutorial that is in the form that you have to watch, before you can submit it. So make sure to do that as well. And then after you submit it to us, our processing times can take up to 7 business days. So just, give us a little bit of time. And we issue a new I-20 to you once you apply for OPT. So once your request is approved, you'll get a new I-20 that has the recommendation date on the back, and we'll send it electronically. You'll have to print it and sign it. Please don't forget to sign your I-20s. And of course, always just make sure everything is correct on the I-20 too, before you go and upload it to USCIS. And then after that, then you can start filing the I-765 on the USCIS website. So we also have a link to go to the I-765 online. And you have to have the I-20 from us in order to file. If you file without it, or if you file basically without the I-20 without it, you will get denied. So please make sure that you get the recommendation from us. And then you can't go past 30 days. So the I-20 is only valid for 30 days from the date the OPT recommendation is put in, which will most likely be the day that your request is approved. So make sure that you submit it within that 30 days, or they will deny your application if it's older than that. So you can also check their website for more information, which we have here. And I think, yes. And then for online filing, everything is submitted online. There's no mailage, postage cost, nothing. It's all online. You can use your credit debit card. You don't have to use money order or anything like that. And you have to complete all of the required fields in the form before the system will allow you to proceed. So if it's required, you can't move forward. You have to fill it out and upload whatever they are asking you to. And it also reduces the chance that your application will be rejected due to insufficient information. So just make sure you're following all their instructions on that. And you can also use the online portal if you do get an RFE. You can use that the USCIS portal, there's like a section that's like respond to request for evidence, and whatever it is they're asking you for, you can upload all those documents in there. You don't have to mail it or anything like that. And then after submission, you'll get a receipt number. Like once you submit your application to USCIS, you'll get a receipt number. You should get an email like right away that'll tell you, oh, it's like submitted. So make sure that you're checking your email and that you're using also make sure that you're using an email that you're going to check regularly. So then, of course, USCIS will process it. The processing time can take 3 to 4 months, but it fluctuates, so it really depends. But that's usually the timeline. And there is an option of premium processing, which is supposed to give you like have your OPT approved within 30 business days. The previous fee was $16.85, but now beginning March 1st, it'll be $17.80. So that's something to keep in mind too. And it may change, may later change the application to premium. So, just make sure that you're keeping up to date with that. Um, you'll get a receipt, you'll get a case number from USCIS via your electronic notification, like online. And you can use that case number to check like the status of your application. That's on their website. It's a tool that they have, so you can see just like where it is in the process and see what is like what's going on with it. You cannot work until your application is approved by USCIS. So once the 18th hits and your I-20 ends, you have to stop working, and you cannot work until you until you're approved and you have your EAD card. So they may send you an RFE during that time. And again, if you do get an RFE, if you're not sure, you could always check with ISSS too to make sure what are like what am I supposed to do, or you can gather whatever it is they're asking you for, and make sure that you can upload it to your portal in the USCIS website. And then after it's approved, you'll get your EAD card. If there's an issue with the receipt of your EAD card, or there's any errors on it, or if it's been a long time and you haven't gotten it, please make sure to reach out to us, so that way we can help you and kind of figure out like what's going on, or advise you on what you should do to get said errors fixed or anything like that. And so now I'm gonna pass it over to my co-presenter, Jeremy, to talk about when you can start working. Jeremy, you're muted and your video is off.
There we go. Sorry, everybody. I was having trouble getting that back, getting the thing to appear in the window. Okay, sorry, it just took me a minute to get back to the right slide here. So let's talk a little bit about when can you start to work. So you've got to have your OPT approved, and you have you got to have the card in your hand. You'll get you'll be able to see on the ISS or the USCIS website that your OPT is approved. And also the start date on that card has to be reached. So if you put down July 1st on your start date on the card, but your employer wants you to start on June 15th, you cannot. You have to begin on the start date of the card or after. Yeah. And once you receive your OPT card, and hopefully you have your job offer, you're going to report your OPT approval in IPEN, we have a OPT reporting e-form. You're going to update your employer and your start date of the job and you're going to upload your OPT card so we can see the PDF of your card. And you must do this reporting because that's what's going to stop the clock on your unemployment time after your OPT begins, possibly in probably June or July when your OPT begins. So you got to do that reporting. Don't forget, come summer. You will also get a email when you apply for OPT. You'll get an email directly from the government, from SEVP. That's the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. And they will ask you to set up a portal account. That is your personal account where you can also do the OPT reporting directly to the government. But you always want to continue to report in IPEN. The government portal tends to be kind of buggy. You should make an account and you should use it, but you should always use IPEN because that informs ISSS and it will upload to the government. So it will keep that reporting current. You need to use both areas, SEVP portal and IPEN to report. Oh, sorry, my screen is not moving. There we go. Okay. Um, Unemployment time. So when you're on OPT, your first year of OPT, you have 90 days of unemployment time. And you stop that unemployment clock by doing the reporting. So let's say your card starts on July 1st, but your job starts on August 1st. So then you might burn 30 days of unemployment time out of your 90 days. And that's okay if you do that, but then you only have 60 days left if you lose your job sometimes during that OPT period. And you can always you always want to keep up with the reporting because that's what's going to help us calculate your unemployment time. And there's a counter in SEVIS that, if you've been on OPT for 6 months and you want to check how much unemployment time you have, you can always check with your ISSS advisor and we can see it in real time to see how your unemployment is going. Hopefully, you don't have any. And if you get to, say, 80 days of unemployment, then you should probably really prepare to leave the US because you cannot exceed the 90 days. And if you think you're going to, it's better to buy a ticket and exit the US. Okay. A few people asked in the chat about travel. Um, and I answered them in the chat or in the Q&A and said that we would explain it. So listen carefully because there's some nuances to OPT travel. Okay. So you must be in the US, physically in the US when you apply for OPT. Okay. And when we open up the OPT processing about a week from now, you'll be able to start submitting your OPT request in IPEN. But during the time, say when you request your OPT I-20, the end of this month, up until May 18th, you haven't graduated yet. Okay, so you're still in school. And then you can travel as normal. But after your program end date, basically after May 18th, we do not recommend that you travel. Okay, because your OPT would probably still be in process at that point, and you really need to have it approved for you to return to the US. But you don't want to be out because suppose there's a problem with your processing, you never get the OPT card back, and then you're just out of the US. So you really want to make sure you plan to be in the US during that, say, May to July period while you're waiting for your OPT. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit more about this. So here's some of the risks that I just described. You can't renew your OP or your F1 visa if you don't have your EAD card. Your EAD might be lost in the mail if you're out. It might be lost in the mail if you're here, but at least you'd be in the US to figure it out. Um, if your OPT is denied and you're outside the US after your program end date, like that's it. You can't reapply. But if you were in the US and you were still on your grace period, you could reapply. And that happens to some people. They discover on June 1st, oh my God, my OPT got denied. But not to worry, you can apply again because you're still on your 60-day grace period. Um, and whether or not you travel is really up to your personal situation, and as well as any ongoing travel restrictions that may occur. We definitely talk to students about OPT travel all the time. And it's okay if you want to make an appointment to see one of us to discuss your personal kind of travel timeline. But generally, think about it. February to May, you're still in school. So you're okay to travel if you have a valid F1 visa. But after May 18th, you better think really hard about traveling because you're waiting for your OPT in that period. So if you do want to travel after May 18th, here's the items that you want to have. So see that valid passport, valid F1 visa, OPT I-20, uh, updated, which it probably would be within the last 6 months, your OPT card, and your job offer or proof of employment. So those are your four basic things to use to travel after May 18th. And this is the whole post graduation, before graduation issue. And I know some of you might be planning to take a trip um, after you graduate, but before your job starts. So these are the items that you need to have. And you need to really think hard about that travel. Is it worth the risk? Do you have the proper documents? Let's talk a little bit about STEM. Many majors at Penn are STEM OPT majors. Okay, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. Um, we have a list of the eligibility majors, and most of you should know whether you're eligible for STEM. Obviously, most of our uh, engineering and science majors, it's obviously they are STEM qualified. There are a few other majors throughout Penn that are STEM qualified as well. Um, and we're not going to go too deep into STEM OPT, except to say that's how you can apply for the next period of OPT, the 2 years of STEM time that you might be eligible for. And you will do that next year at this time, about 90 days before the end of your OPT. So the timeline is similar. So students are applying for the folks who are out there on OPT are now starting to apply for STEM OPT to extend for 2 more years. It's pretty simple. You're still going to use IPEN. You're still going to give us dates. The dates are set really for STEM OPT. Your employer has to assist with the 983 form, but it's not too difficult. It's just kind of a 5-page PDF that your employer has to help you fill out. It doesn't cost them any money, but they need to basically sign off that you have a STEM job and you have a STEM major. So here's another issue um, with OPT in general. There's such a thing as the cap gap extension. So most OPT will run, say, June to June or July to July. But if you get picked in the H-1B lottery, you might your your H-1B will most likely begin on October 1st. So your OPT might expire on July 15th, but then you've got 6 weeks until October 1st. So the cap gap will allow you to extend your OPT to cover that 6 weeks of time until October 1st. And you can also, if this happens to you in the summer of 2027, you can apply for the cap gap and we will extend your I-20. So you will get that extra 6 weeks of OPT time. And then you just flip over to H-1B on October 1st. And there's an e-form to request the cap gap in IPEN. You will still be using IPEN while you are on OPT to do the reporting or to request cap gap or request STEM. Still working through IPEN throughout that time. So here's some FAQs for you, and I hope you all can easily answer these questions. So if ISSS generates your I-20 for you on March 1st, I would advise you to apply for OPT immediately. As soon as you get that OPT I-20 back, go on the USCIS site and apply for it. But if it's more than 30 days old, can you use it to apply for OPT? I hope you know the answer. No, you cannot. You've got to use it. If you find yourself that, oh, you didn't apply and I'm at the 27th day, then you better get back in touch with your ISSS advisor. We will cancel that one and issue you a new I-20. You don't have to pay again, but we have to fix it for you. So apply basically as soon as you get your OPT I-20, apply, and that will help you avoid it. Do you need your EAD or OPT card before beginning work? I hope you know this. Yes, you need the card in your hand because you need to be able to show that to your employer to show them that your OPT has started. So you got to have the card. Can you change your OPT request dates? Well, if you have already sent it in or already applied online to USCIS, you cannot change it. Like you've got them. You got to decide those dates and stick to it. If you have not applied to immigration yet, then you can check back with your ISSS advisor. We can cancel it and we can issue you a new I-20 with different dates. But if it's already gone to USCIS and you've got a receipt, those are the dates you're working with. You can't take it back. Can you cancel your OPT? Same thing. If you have not applied to immigration yet, you can cancel it because it's just at the ISSS stage. You can just get back in touch with Brianna and say, hey, I'm not going to use my OPT, and we can cancel it. But if you apply to USCIS and you've got a receipt, that's it. You've got it. It's use it or lose it. You can't give it back. Suppose you did OPT before. Maybe you did OPT and after undergrad, and now you're a grad student at Penn. Are you eligible for another 12 months? So I hope you remember the answer is yes, if it's a higher degree level. So if you do it after your bachelor's degree, you can do some OPT, come back to school, get a master's, then you can do another level of OPT at master's level. Same thing. If you go from master's to PhD, you can do another level of OPT. But if you do master's to master's, then you use your OPT in between, then it's used at the master's level. So it's based on the level, bachelor's, master's, PhD. And what is your immigration status when you're on OPT? I hope you know. OPT is part of F1. Okay, you are still our F1 student. You're still using your F visa, you're still using your I-20, but OPT is a benefit of F1 status. So keep that in mind. You are still an F1 student and you're still working with Penn and ISSS. All right. Final thoughts. Make sure that you check out the info on the website. We will have this stuff, this webinar up on the website probably in a few days. that you can take a look at, but there is also the tutorials, and probably the webinar from fall is still up there right now. Plan ahead, know your timelines, keep copies of all the things that you've sent. You're doing it electronically, but it might not be a bad idea. Keep those PDFs of your I-20 for your own records. Continue to read ISSS emails when you're on OPT. We might be sending you an important message. Make sure that you are still keeping in touch with us. All right, here's all our socials stuff. And I think we have the survey at the very end. Yes, so we have a survey. Um, and now we can turn our attention to some of the Q&A stuff now, and we'll try to go through that. I don't know if Brianna, have you been answering some of the Q&A while I was talking? I'm not sure.
No,
Yes.
you had control of my screen, so I,
Okay.
yeah. So let's see. But I have control of the screen now again.
Okay.
Mm.
So let's start taking some of the Q&A ones here. We can kind of pop back and forth between us. The last one that I answered, was about, so we're at like, looks like about 211. So we can just kind of go back and forth. So I see Jose asked, when would I need to justify how my job is related to my major? Um, it depends. You might never have to justify. It depends if USCIS asks. The most common juncture would be maybe when you applied for STEM, or when you apply for an H-1B or permanent residence. I mean, it might not be for years, but you need to be able to make a logical connection to explain how, I'm a chemistry major, so I'm a chemist. Like, that's really how USCIS thinks about things. They're pretty literal. Um, you can't be art history and you're doing chemistry, or vice versa. You really need to be in your field. So, okay. So I don't know, Brianna, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so someone said, just for clarification, I heard that you can submit to USCIS starting on February 17th. Can you request for OPT I-20 to ISSS earlier than this? So the 17th is the earliest that you can apply for through both USCIS and us, but do not apply to USCIS without applying to us first. So the 17th is the earliest that you can apply with us. So just think of it as I need to apply to ISSS first. So you can't apply any earlier than that. That's the earliest that you can apply.
Yeah, the next one is a little bit of nuance there. We will open, this is per my understanding, we can apply to USCIS starting the 18th. So can we apply to ISSS for an ISSS I-20 sooner than that? The training mentioned that we can do that. Yeah, we will turn on the e-form a few days before the 18th, but the e-forms won't go anywhere. Okay. We're not going to release anybody's I-20 until the 18th, because we know that Penn students are so eager and they want to apply so fast that they will apply ahead, and then their application will get rejected by USCIS. So we will not release any of the I-20s, but you can start the process, because remember, your academic unit has to approve it. So it's going to take a few days, because there's going to be like literally 1,000 of you are going to try to apply at the same time. And I hope you don't crash IPEN, because you're all trying to apply at the same time. But I just want to assure everybody, you don't need to all try to apply the first day. It's not really going to change the outcome that much. I mean, apply in the first few weeks, definitely, but you don't need to do it at midnight on the first day. There's no need to freak out that much about it. Within the first couple weeks, definitely apply, but doesn't have to be the first day at midnight.
Okay. And so the other one is, hi, I have two questions. One, can I still do my unpaid job for STEM extension? And two, do I need to file anything extra to USCIS after I've reported my EAD and employment to ISSS? So this is more for initial OPT, but in general for STEM, no, you can't have an unpaid job on STEM. It has to be a paid job. So that's something you want to keep in mind when you're looking for jobs, especially if you're planning to continue with STEM. And do you need to file anything extra to USCIS after you've reported that your EAD card and employment to us? No. You'll report to us through the OPT reporting form. So the only time you would need to report to us is if there's any change in your employment if you um or if you're like updating your address or something like that. There's two separate forms for that. Uh, but you don't need to report anything else to USCIS. Any reporting is done through your IPEN portal through us.
Okay. Um, to confirm, we cannot undertake any internship while waiting for our EAD. Correct. You cannot. You cannot. You need to have the EAD card in your hand to do an internship or to work in the US. So the answer is no. Wait for your card and then do your internship.
And the next question is, what date will they put on the EAD if I don't have the start date for work? So the start date has to be within your 60-day grace period, not necessarily the date you start working for your job, but the date that you want to request USCIS. So it's either if they approve it beforehand, the date that you requested. Sometimes it's not always the date that you request. Sometimes they might approve it past your start date. And if that's the case, then whatever day that they approve your OPT, that will be your new start date. So for now, it has to be the date within your 60-day grace period.
This is a common question. Can we work at Penn on campus as a TA, etc., while our OPT is being processed? No, you may not. Not after May 18th, you can. So a lot of students may be hired by Penn to work as mostly as a temp worker, possibly a postdoc, possibly some kind of researcher. But you cannot start that job until you have the card and the start date has arrived. So on-campus work for everybody, if you graduate, it ends. Okay, it's no longer a TA, GA, RA job. No, no more. On OPT, your department can rehire you as like a temp worker or some type of staff position, but you can no longer be hired in that kind of student designated job as a TA or RA. So that's gotta end.
Uh, Then the next question is, you may not engage in employment. Can we not do part-time CPT? No. Once you graduate, you can't do any work at all. You have to stop. CPT is also only for when you're in school, so during the semester. So no, you cannot. And you cannot do any work once your I-20 ends on the 18th.
Can I apply for both CPT and OPT at the same time before I graduate? If I got my CPT but still pending with OPT. Um, yeah, I mean, Jasmine, for right now, like if you had CPT, say from February to May, you can do CPT for that block of time if your department allows it. Um, yeah, but that CPT is going to end on May 18th, and then you might start your OPT in July. So the answer is yes, you you can do that. Um, yeah.
And the next question is pre-completion OPT absolutely paused, or can we still apply if we wanted to work part-time in quarter 4? So like USCIS is not processing pre-completion OPT at all. So we're not really recommending it for students. It's not recommended. We're not recommending it because it will not be processed.
I'm answering a couple in the chat too. So if our current lease on our apartment ends on May 31 May, what should we do with the mailing address? I would suggest that you find a reliable friend somewhere in the US, doesn't have to be Philly, but it could be, who is still going to be there in their residence, wherever that is, that you can put that address. The form will allow you to put a care of address to send it to your friend, or relative or somebody else in the US that has a reliable address that will be there past the end of your student apartment. This is a common problem, but you need somebody, and I would recommend not some student apartment in West Philly that the mail gets lost. Okay, somebody who's like got a real reliable address that they always get their mail, and that's the address you should use. Um,
And so one of the other questions is you may not engage in employment for training during this time. So is this regarding the company's work or the student job we are currently working? That goes for any employment. All employment,
yeah,
you have to stop once your I-20 ends. No work at all.
yeah. Until you get your OPT
Yeah,
card
until you get your
on
OPT.
August, or on July 1st or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. If we mention the start date is June 15 and our EAD has not come yet, what happens in that case? Um, then I mean, if you don't have the card yet, you can't start. You just have to keep waiting. Um, and if you want to avoid, there's no way to avoid it completely because the processing is really out of your hands. If you're if you have to start on June 15th, that's kind of medium. That's not really early, but it's not late. Um, you may want to consider applying for premium processing, like either when you first apply in March, or even if you get to, say, you get to May 1st and you don't have your card yet, maybe upgrade to premium so that you know that you'll get it by June 15th. That's what I would recommend at that point.
And then, so the next question is, would we still have our email active to use an iPen to use iPen after we have graduated? Yes, you should be able to still use it, but I do believe they changed to alumni email address
Yeah,
at a certain point. So make sure you're keeping up with that.
and also on the email front, we also keep your quote alternative email. So we might have your Gmail or your Hotmail or something in there. And we can use that because eventually Penn will turn off your regular email. It can take a month or two, but they will turn it off. But make sure we have your Gmail or some other email that you can use to stay in touch.
Uh, It says, what if my EAD start date is June 15th, but I want to start July 1st? So, that's, you can do that. Like, well, so if you're approved for OPT on June 15th and that's your start date, you have 90 days of unemployment that start from the day your OPT is approved. Uh, so you can start a little bit later in July, but just make sure that you're not running out of unemployment days during that time.
What is the latest possible start date I can choose for my OPT? So I believe that'll be July 17th is the latest. That's the end of the 60 days. So 60 days from May 18th, which is graduation. So I think it's July 17th is the latest you could ask for.
Somebody said, my employer asked to request your OPT start date as 10 days before the actual start date. Would that count towards unemployment? Yeah. Well, yes. So say you're approved, then yeah, pretty much because you're not working during that time and your start date's not till 10 days later. So that does take away from your
Yeah.
OPT
But
unemployment.
10 days that's pretty minor.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Um, let's see. Oh, okay. This is a good one. What if I have an internship June to August and my start date for my official job is in August? How does that work with the unemployment time? Well, um, this happens for students sometimes, and it's really not a problem. So you're basically, if your internship starts in June, then you're going to start that on OPT and you're going to report it as your job. Okay. You're going to report that as employment. And then come August, when your other job or your real job starts, you're going to report again and you're just going to update the employer And if there's a gap of, say, a week in between, then maybe you'll have 7 days or 5 days of unemployment, but that's all. All you're going to do there is just report the new job. Internship ends, new job starts, and you're good. Just report it.
Um, And then somebody said, so the 90 days of unemployment is not after graduation, but after we get our EAD card. So it's the 90 days of unemployment starts from the day your OPT is approved. So if they approve it, like say you request June 15th and they don't approve it until like July 21st, that'll be your new start date and your unemployment days will start from there. But say you request June 15th and they approve it before June 15th, your 90 days of unemployment will not start until June 15th. So it's the day that you're approved for your start date.
How long after graduation do we still have your ISSS advisor? You are with us until the end of your OPT and possibly till the end of your STEM OPT. So some of you may still have Brianna as your advisor for 3 more years. Okay. So, and I have to joke with a lot of you. Some of you were happy to see you for the next 3 years, and some of you, we wish you would get an H-1B so that you stop bothering us. But no, I mean, we hope everybody turns out okay. But yeah, we are still with you during your OPT and your STEM period.
And so the next one is what happens if my program ends on May 18th, but your EAD starts from June 18th? Are those 30 days counted under the 90-day unemployment allowance? No, that's again, the 90 days of unemployment don't start until your OPT is approved, not after you graduate. It starts once your OPT is approved. And then so
Okay, that one, I answer that one by typing. Let's see. How do I get an SSN? Um, yes. Well, actually, Jose, you can, as part of the OPT application, as part of the I-765, there's a section where you can apply for your SSN at the same time as your OPT card. So that's how you can do it. It's part of the same application. And then you should get your SSN number in your Social Security card about the same time that you get your OPT card, if you don't already have an SSN. I know a lot of you may already have SSNs from either on-campus work or CPT or whatever. But if you need an SSN, you can apply as part of your OPT application. So it's a good system, actually.
and so the next one is, so if we submit on February 18th, we could travel on February 20th without any issues. I mean, there's always a risk when traveling in general. And then, so say you, oh, sorry. Yeah, in general, there's always a risk. So if you travel on February 20th, it's just the usual, just making sure that you have your documents, that the required documents needed for when you travel. Um, don't be out of the country for 5 months or more. And then just making sure that you return at least before your program end dates and such. So, and then that's pretty much it. But just keep in mind there's always a risk when traveling. So just make sure you have all of your documents with you, and we have a travel and announcements page. So make sure you're keeping your eye on that in case there are any updates regarding that.
Okay. I answered that RFE question in the chat, but let's see. If I was on H-1B before grad school, are there concerns for switching to OPT? Um, no, no, not really. A lot of students do that. If you, for example, if you've come back to be a Wharton MBA and you were on H before, then you could apply for OPT for the first year. You could theoretically even apply for STEM too, and then switch back to H-1B. Um, I think if you still have H time left, you should discuss that with your employer, see if they want to move you directly back to H. But generally, that's okay, is my answer.
And then somebody said, after we have received the OPT EAD card, are we free to travel? Yeah, you can travel. Again, just make sure you have the required documents when you're traveling, your EAD card, your job offer letter, things like that. And then, of course, another thing to keep in mind is if you're traveling without a position, just make sure that you are keeping your unemployment days in mind. Um, and then making sure that one of the suggested documents to have is if you're traveling without a position, that it's something that shows that you're like looking for a job. But if you're traveling with your job, make sure you have your offer letter and such along with your the other required documents, the usual.
And make sure that your F visa is still valid. Because remember,
Yeah.
on OPT, you are still F1. So you've got to have a valid visa to come and go on OPT,
Mhm.
along with your EAD card, your updated I-20, your job offer, your visa. You got to have all the pieces, 4 pieces. So can we submit OPT before we know our start date? And then how do we think about this? Okay, so this is a common dilemma where um, people in February, you don't necessarily know your start date. We understand that. Um, I think if you have no idea, then I would probably apply for a date later in July to start your OPT, maybe July 15th, July 17th, something like that. And then you're just going to have to, hopefully you get your card and you're going to have to explain to any potential employer, like, I cannot start until my card starts, which is July 15th. And that's it. You're going to have that discussion with your employer about when you can start.
And so the other question is, if we applied for OPT but haven't gotten it by the end of the 60-day grace period, do we get an extension while we wait for OPT? So for that one, it's not really an extension. It's just since you have a pending application with USCIS, you are in legal status and you're allowed to stay here and just until they make their decision on whether or not you're approved. But yeah, you can stay.
Yeah, so here's another travel question. If my program end date is May 18th and OPT start date is June 22nd, if I get your EAD card before leaving the US, can you travel? Well, yes, but you've got to have your items with you. You got to have a valid F1 visa. You got to have the card. You got to have your updated OPT I-20 that says OPT approved, which you will get by reporting that you have your card and your job offer. So always think of that period. This is a perfect example. After graduation, but job hasn't started. Everybody wants to take a trip. So you need those 4 items: visa, OPT card, OPT I-20, and job offer.
And so it says, when you say that we have to be in the US at the time of filing, does that mean I have to be in the US when I submit my application, i.e., I don't need to be in the US while the application is being considered? Also, when you say filing, do you mean the application to ISSS or the application to USCIS? So, yes, you have to be in the US. You can't file for OPT outside of the US, and that's to USCIS. Um, of course, it, so you should also be in the US when filing with us as well. So that way we know you're here and everything. But again, yeah, you do have to be in the US when applying for OPT. And then sorry, I missed the second part of the question, but like after you filed it, yes, you can travel, but again, there's a risk when traveling for that. So just keep that in mind because if it is approved while you're outside of the US, you'll have to have someone ship you your EAD card because they don't ship outside of the US.
And Leslie asks about if my F1 visa expires after a few months of OPT, should I go back to your home country to renew it? Um, yes, if you want to, but remember there's some risk in that. You've got to have the OPT approved, you've got to have your job offer, and then you've got to talk to your employer because suppose you get stuck out of the US for 3 months or 4 months while you're waiting for your visa. Your employer might not be happy about that. So you better think very hard about once your visa expires, do I really want to travel? Am I going to be able to renew my visa? Even if you're on OPT, you never know. You could have administrative processing, visa delays. You could be stuck outside the US. So you better think hard about it to make those arrangements. And some people do it and they're fine. but we really don't know in this new and in this constantly changing immigration environment. We don't know. It can be risky. It's up to your choice. But I think same thing for Jilin Feng below. Same thing. You can travel, but you better think hard about the implications of that travel, and what you want to, how risky is it? And you can certainly have a discussion with your ISSS advisor before you make travel plans.
And then I also saw, because I saw like we have 4 minutes left, I saw that there are a couple of questions about travel just in general. Um, so like if you're traveling, so if you're traveling in between, like in between your program dates, that's fine. Like you can apply for OPT and travel with it while you're still within your program dates and come back as a student. Again, you should probably come back before your um program end dates, but that's fine. So like if you want to travel for spring break or something like that, you can definitely do that. Just make sure that you have your um, but you have like your I-20, your visa's valid, and the what else am I looking for? I forgot. But just making sure that you have those documents. Like you would travel as a continuing student at that point because you're still a continuing student rather than
And this question about the summer, postpone your graduation till August. If you the I don't the student is anonymous here. If you were a Wharton MBA thinking of going to NCAD, that's not a good idea. You need to keep your graduation as May. This is a specific Wharton MBA program, and the answer would be no. It's you should stick with May for OPT purposes. And if you want to talk more to your ISSS advisor, you should do so for specifically for that NBA NCAD program or exchange program at the end of Wharton MBA. It's a pretty specific case. So just FYI. I don't know if you are, but
and there's yeah, like some questions about H1B here as
yeah, and
well.
permanent residence. I really think we for EB5, I-485, all that kind of stuff, ISSS we will issue you your an OPT I-20 if you apply for it, but you really need to talk to your immigration attorney about this, whether it's a good idea or not. That's not something that we can advise on. You have a whole separate set of immigration things going on there, so talk to your attorney about that.
Uh, some of the questions like are very similar. I see like what's the latest, like when's the latest you could put your start date? That's gonna be the last day of your 60-day grace period. So that should be July 17th, 2026. That's the latest you can put. I also see questions that are asking like if it's July 17th and you still haven't been approved for OPT, then are you here illegally? Nope. As long as your application is pending with USCIS, then you are here legally and you're just waiting for them to make a decision. So that's fine. Um, and also people just asking in general, how do you pick like your start date? Um, if you don't know it for work. So again, it has to be within the 60-day grace period. So it's just a matter of if you do have a job, like when does it start and like what are those days would you like to put? If you don't have a job, what day would you want to put? Those kinds of things. So we can't tell you what date to pick, but you just have to keep those things in mind when you're applying because you do have to have one of the dates picked within that 60-day grace period.
All right.
So also another thing is if your visa expires while you're in the US, you don't have to get it renewed as long as you stay within the US. But if you travel outside of the US, you do have to get it renewed in order to come back. But of course, if you're traveling after your I-20 has ended and you haven't applied for, say you didn't apply for OPT, then you can't, like you won't be able to come back. But in general, you can stay in the US while your visa is expired as long as you're maintaining your F1 status. Like you're applying for OPT, you're taking your classes, things like that.
So somebody said, is the H-1B cap gap possible for this year? Is also applying for OPT now? Like, yes, sure. Yeah, that cap gap is possible if you get picked in the H lottery in April. Yeah, that's up to your H filing though. Um, and then somebody else asked H-1B lottery this year. Can they start in October, having a break between graduation and October? Or do they still? No, you need to have OPT in between. Yeah, you need, I'll put that in the chat. You need OPT for summer, basically.
And I saw
Yeah,
one
go
question
ahead,
that was
go ahead.
like, it just asked, so like if they apply for OPT during the semester, but they're still working on campus, if your I-20 has not yet ended, and you're applying for OPT, say February 17th, you can continue to work your on-campus job because your I-20 is still valid and you haven't finished. But once you finish that and that I-20 ends on the 18th, then you have to stop all employment. But I think a lot of these questions are very,
Yeah,
I'm not seeing,
kind of repetitive.
yeah, so I'm not seeing any like other, like any questions that are not ones that we've answered.
Yeah. Um, can you use OPT after law school if you use your master's? If so Jose, if you, it depends on what law program you're in. If you're in a JD program, a JD is a Juris Doctor, so that's a higher than master's. Um, but if it's one of the other, there's like the master's in law, then that's master's level. So no, it depends on your degree, but most people are JDs. Some of you might be LLMs. LLM is also considered higher, but master's in law is not. So it depends on your degree.
One question I did see, just because I know it's 3:03, so we're over time, but somebody asked like if they requested June 15th as their start date and they got approved in May, can they start working before June 15th? No, you cannot. You can only start working on the start date that is listed on your EAD card.
Here's one. If my F1 visa expires, but my I-20 is still valid, do I need to get a new F visa before applying for OPT? No, you don't. Your visa is only for travel. OPT is for work permission, but a visa is for travel. They're two different things.
I think I think
Yeah,
that's yeah, I think majority of the questions are ones that we've answered.
yeah,
And it's yeah, no, we're over a little bit, so
yeah, yeah. And we will put this, we will put the recording up on the website, and we will have two more OPT webinars coming up. I think in a couple weeks we'll have one more, and then we have another one in March. So if you want to join again, and you can always have a short discussion with your ISSS advisor on really specific questions. But thank you everybody for joining us today, and we hope that you we've kind of taken the mystery out of OPT, and good luck with your applications in the next couple weeks.
yeah. Goodbye.